Hello, welcome to Kabbalah Explained Simply. I am Gil Shir, and today we're doing an entire Kabbalah course in 60 minutes. So you're going to be focused, close any other windows, close the chats, the TikToks, Instagrams, anything that's not this page, because if you want to really get an entire Kabbalah course in 60 minutes, you have to you have to concentrate. So you can ask any question you want in the chats. I'll be looking at the chats. So if anything is unclear, then you can ask. Hopefully it will be clear. So let's get started. An entire Kabbalah course in 60 minutes. I will just add before we get started that I'm actually quite excited and I dressed up for today. Why? Why did I dress up? You might be wondering. Well, I'll tell you why. And the reason is because today, for the first time actually ever in all of history, we're having our first Kabbu exclusive Zoom gathering immediately after this live session. So all of our Kabbu members are invited to join this session on Zoom. It's not going to be broadcasted anywhere else, only on Zoom for the Kabbu students. So you're welcome if you're a Kabbu student, and you've probably already got an email about it. If you haven't and you're not sure and you want to find out what's happening, then you can contact info@kabbuconnect.com. Rachel will post that in the chat if you have any questions. And if you want to become a Kabbu member, then you can also do that right now and even still join the session today. And you'll find a link in the chat as well to become a Kabbu member. So without further ado, let's get started. Let's jump in to our entire Kabbalah course in just 60 minutes. So let's start off. Let's see where we are. Okay. So, lesson number 1. What is Kabbalah? Right? So, let's start off with what it's not. It's not mysticism. It's not Judaism. It's not some tarot cards or meditation or some mystical method or philosophy. It's none of those things. The wisdom of Kabbalah is a science to discover and reveal and connect to the hidden forces of nature. That's basically it. That's the wisdom of Kabbalah. Right? So imagine, let's take an example. Let's take flight, for example. The laws of physics, they always existed, right? No one invented the law of gravity, but people only learned how to access this law and with, the laws of aerodynamics. And when they did, they could start flying. Now, were these laws new? Of course not, but they weren't yet revealed. And this goes on with science, for millennia, that there are discoveries of the forces of this world that bring not only new insights and understanding, but also new abilities. So the spiritual world is the same. There are hidden forces of the spiritual worlds. And the wisdom of Kabbalah is a method to learn, to study, to reveal, to connect, to unlock these forces. And when you do, then you obviously get, along with that, additional abilities, a deeper, wider perception of reality. And I'm not talking just about an expanded view with your current 5 senses. No, I'm talking about developing a spiritual sense, an additional sense to the 5 senses that you have. A sense, sometimes we call it the 6th sense, but it's not really accurate because that would mean that it's on the same level as the 5 senses and it's another sense. But it's not, because it's on a completely different level and it taps into a completely different frequency of reality, and it gives us a deep understanding of the forces that are at play here, of everything, of our past, our present, our future, everything that's happened to us, not just in this life, but also in previous lives, everything that will happen to us. It basically, let me actually try and draw an example. Let's pop over to this board. All right, so let's say, you're looking at these 4 dots. Now, can you make meaning of these 4 dots? Can you connect them? Can you understand what they mean? So you're probably thinking of all kinds of geometrical maybe structures and things like that. But in fact, these 4 dots, it depends how you look at them. If you're looking on a 2-dimensional view, then you're right, it can build some kind of shape. But if you rise to a 3-dimensional view, then these 4 dots can actually resemble something that's completely different. For example, they can be the prints of the legs of a table. And suddenly, when you look from a higher perspective, then these same 4 dots that had maybe some random or some meaning to them, you could start telling yourself stories about these 4 dots, that they're this, they're that, they make this structure, their distance, and you can make up all kinds of things that are correct on this level, but they're completely missing the point, right? Because when you rise to a higher dimension, then suddenly you have tools to look at it from a completely different perspective. And you can make sense of it that you can't even explain on a 2-dimensional level, right? Try explaining that these are the prints of a table in a 3D world to a 2-dimensional being. Pretty much impossible, right? So that is the wisdom of Kabbalah. It is a method to rise not from the 2-dimensional to the 3-dimensional, but from the material world over here to the spiritual world. So that is the wisdom of Kabbalah. All right. Any questions about that? Let's take a look if we have any questions. And if not, then we'll keep going to lesson number 2. Okay. So someone's asking, do you need to know the Torah to study Kabbalah? And what would you say the spiritual world is, the 4th dimension? So I'll quickly answer these questions to cover up lesson number 1, what is the wisdom of Kabbalah? There is one precondition to studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, and it is not age-related or religion-related or gender-related. It is actually only related to one thing, and that is your desire. So the precondition to study the wisdom of Kabbalah is an inner desire to unlock a higher level of reality. However you interpret that sentence, if you interpret it in any way, then that means that you are permitted, you could say, to study the wisdom of Kabbalah. So if you want to know the driving forces of everything, if you want to know why you're alive, the purpose of reality, the purpose of your life, why bad things happen, how to change myself, how to change my life, how to bring it into balance. If you want to know anything that's related to your connection to something that's higher than this world, then the wisdom of Kabbalah is for you. Okay, another quick question. Can you give an example for the hidden forces? What is meant by that? Well, I can give an example of this world. So, centuries ago, then there weren't microscopes and no one knew that, germs and bacteria existed because we didn't have the right vessel to observe them. We didn't have microscopes. And then when the microscope was invented, we could look deeper into matter and we could identify smaller objects. Now, does this mean that these bacteria were not in existence? No, it does not mean that, of course. It means that we were lacking the tool to observe them. And I'll give you another example, my favorite one. You've probably heard it before. And it goes like this. Can you hear the music around you right now? Can you hear the music? So you can either hear some music from maybe your neighbors, or you are thinking if maybe you're nuts or if I'm nuts. Well, the answer is simple. There is music around you right now, and if you can't hear it, it's for one simple reason. You didn't turn on the radio. Take the radio that you have switch on the knob, tune into the right frequency, and bam, the music is already here. It's in the room. The waves are in the room right now. Why can't I hear them? I don't have the correct tool. So we are surrounded by hidden forces everywhere. Frequencies that we simply need the right tool to tap into. And the wisdom of Kabbalah is a method that helps us develop this radio device that we can calibrate to tune in. Just like we tune into the radio waves, we can also tune in to the spiritual waves, so to speak. They're not here in this world, like with the radio example. They're on a different level. But like with the radio example, if we have the right tool, we can tune into them. Okay. Let's move on to lesson number 2, and because I can see that a lot of your questions are related to the next lessons. So that was the bite of lesson number 1. What is the wisdom of Kabbalah? Let's pop in to lesson number 2, which is, let me put it on the board. Okay. So lesson number 2, how did it all start? So where did it all come from? Where did I come from? Where did you come from? What is the origin of us, of reality, of everything around us? Where is it heading? Right? All of these are valid questions. I mean, if you look at, nature, and this is actually what I thought for until I found the wisdom of Kabbalah. I thought that everything is just random. I actually discussed this with my wife yesterday, and we were talking about how we each found this wisdom and what this search was for us. And for me, there was just randomness. That's how I thought. I was raised in a Jewish religious home, but at the age of 13, I kind of started, questioning my reality, like I'm sure many of you have and are doing. And my conclusion was, there is nothing, there is no purpose, there is no kind of upper force or anything like that. It's simply random chaos. And then, how could there be that there is such amazing systems? So I thought, okay, by chance, what are the chances that this world will develop? 1 to, a billion. So fine, 1 to a billion over infinite time is bound to happen. So it happened. So what are we all getting excited about, right? So that's what I thought. And then when I heard the explanation of the wisdom of Kabbalah, I must say I was quite amazed of how it all began. So let's take a look and see how it all started. Okay, so it actually started with a thought. A thought of what? Of a force, let's call it light. It's been given many names. I'll just draw it a bit bigger. It's been given many names over the centuries, over millennia. This light, people called it God, Creator, Hashem, Kadosh Baruch Hu, all kinds of names it was given. But basically, it's a pure form to us that is abstract, and it's the ultimate force of goodness, of love, of fulfillment, of perfection. And this light, it wanted to give, because its nature is a force of giving. So it created something that is the exact opposite. So what is the opposite of something that is the ultimate force of giving? It's an ultimate force of receiving. And this is the creation. Well, actually, this creation that we call sometimes a kli, which is basically a vessel in Hebrew, there was a process here of 4 phases that we're not going to get into now because it's not part of this 5-week semester. But basically, just in a nutshell, it went through a process of 4 stages of the light in the kli, and the kli wanting to become like the light, and then the kli figuring it out that it can only receive. So if it does it with the intention to bestow, then it will become like the light. And then by doing that, it reached the status of the light, and then it as if doubled its desire, and it became the malchut, which in Hebrew means like the kingdomship. But this is the process of the formation of the kli. So this is the 4 phases. I'm not going to go into detail of this now, so it's not the place for questions about this specifically. This is covered in the next course, in the next 5-week course. that maybe we'll cover in another 60 minutes. So basically, this entire process was a process of creation. Now, in the beginning, we can look at it like this. The light and the vessel were in a state of complete perfection, like an embryo in the womb. Okay, looking good. All right, so this is A, this is B, and this is C. And in state A, the light and the vessel were in complete perfection. They were as one, like an embryo in the womb. So, just imagine for a second being an embryo, wrapped, in this warmth, the loving care of the mother, being nurtured, getting everything it needs even before it can think it or imagine it, right? It's nurtured, it's fed, it's protected, basically. It's in a perfect state. So this is the first state. This is state A. It's the light and the kli, the vessel, in a state of perfection. Now, you can say, okay, that sounds great, What happened? What happened? So, what happened was that there was something missing in this state A. And this something that was missing, it led to state B, which is this world. And what was missing, actually? Maybe you can try and take a guess what was missing. So please write in the chat what was missing. I'll give you a few seconds to write it in. And I'm sure many of you got this right. What was missing was one simple thing. We had everything in this first state except for independence. And that's it. And in order to actually reach the desired state of the light, which is to give the ultimate form of fulfillment to the created being. That's the purpose of creation, by the way. And don't let any other one or method tell you otherwise. The purpose of your existence is to receive ultimate fulfillment, only not through our current vessels, because actually we can't. As you've probably noticed, every time you get fulfilled, the pleasure, it cancels the fulfillment cancels the pleasure, right? It's like there's a bug in the system. And this bug is intentional because it's pushing us to a higher level of interaction with that force, with a different kind of intention, let's say. And that different kind of intention changes everything. It changes the way we receive. That's why, by the way, the wisdom of Kabbalah, let's actually do that here. So the wisdom of Kabbalah, in Hebrew, this is Kabbalah, the word Kabbalah. In English, Kabbalah. What it actually means is reception. That's what it means. If you go to a store and you buy something in Israel, then you get a Kabbalah, you get a receipt. That's what the word means, Kabbalah. Because all the wisdom is, it's a method that teaches you how to receive correctly in order to reach this perfect state of connection between the vessel and the light. And in order to reach that state, then the light, it distanced itself over a process of 125 degrees until it reached the minimal form of connection, which is called a thin light, Neldekik. And what we were left in is this world. Now, this process is also called shattering. Now, I know the word shattering, it kind of fits into the feeling of this world, doesn't it? It's like we're in a shattered reality. Shattered on all levels, on our perception, on the connection, on humanity, on where we're going. It all seems shattered, right? It seems like this world has something shattered to it. And the reason is because it is, in fact, a result of the shattering. And all we have to do is to climb back up over these 125 degrees. And it's the same 125 degrees that are here, by the way. The same levels that this force concealed itself from us are the same levels we need to climb back up again. That's why when a Kabbalist climbs back up these states, he also knows the purpose and thought of creation, because he replicates the exact same process when climbing back up through these 125 degrees. And that is also why a Kabbalist can describe in detail, on a scientific level, what exists on every one of these degrees and how these forces interact with each other, and how the 10 Sefirot are built, and the 10 Sefirot, which are the building blocks of everything around us, of reality actually, every degree is delving into a deeper structure of these 10 Sefirot. And that's why Kabbalists, they wrote books, and one example is the study of the 10 Sefirot. It's over 3,000 pages of technical, it's like a technical manuscript. It's amazing. It seems so, in some of its parts, it seems so technical and as if non-spiritual, because it's a technical manual. It explains the technical structure of the desire and the vessel and the light and the different states of it and how they interact. And it could be even, boring to an extent if you do not attain what it talks about, because it's basically laying out these structures. But if you attain what the book talks about, then it becomes life. It becomes like alive. Like in the Harry Potter books, when they read books and the books become alive. So that's the study of the 10 Sefirot to a Kabbalist. It's learning about this structure that comes to life, because it's an attainment of everything that we're surrounded by. Okay, so going back to the title of lesson 2, just so we can kind of get back on that. So how did it all start? It all started with a thought of creation, and it is leading us back to that same thought. The only difference is that we need to reach it independently. And now you might be asking how, but wait, we'll get to that in a second. All right, so the thought of creation is the very beginning. State A and state C are identical states. They're states of the light and the vessel being as one, in complete connection and harmony, in a state of ultimate fulfillment. The only difference is that we need to climb back consciously from state B to state C. Now let me tell you a secret, but don't tell anyone. You are, in fact, already here. That's where you are right now. You are already in this state of complete perfection. All you're doing from state B to C is you're changing your glasses to a pair that can perceive that state that you are already in. Right? It's like the example of the radio and the music in the room. The music is already here. I'm surrounded by it. It's everywhere. It's around me. I just don't have a device, so I can't hear it. But if I get this device, if I get the radio and I start playing with a knob to tune into my frequency, and then I hear music, does that mean that this music only started? No, it was there the whole time. It only means that now I developed a tool that can help me perceive this state. And that is exactly what is happening. You are already here in a state of perfection, and there's a point in you that actually feels that feels that what I'm saying is correct, because we all have a spark that is pulling us from this state up to the third state. We all have this spark, right? In some people, all of humanity, by the way, has this spark, because it's built in to creation. It's built into what we are. If we're shattered pieces of this collective state, of this corrected state, then we all have a piece. In some, it's already awakened. In others, it's not. If you're interested in the steps of spiritual awakening, then you can check out the session that we had last week. I'm sure Rachel will post a link in the chat. The 5 life-changing steps of spiritual awakening, which we explained in detail the whole process of the awakening of that point. But we're not going to go into that now. For now, what you need to know is that you're already there in that state, and you just need to discover that. So let's see if we have any questions before we jump over to the next part. Let's see. Okay. Okay, I don't see any questions about this part specifically. If you have questions about this part, then please post them. That would be great. I'm not on the question doc, Ruth, but I am now. Let's see. Okay. So, Dra Carolina is asking... I can't... Okay, would that be becoming our higher self? Yes, that is, in a way, becoming and discovering your higher self. That's why, if you're in Kabbu, then you see that our big kind of logo there, our tagline is unlock a higher level, because this higher level exists and we each have it. And what we're doing is we're unlocking different parts of our perception that are in fact just preventing us from seeing this. So you're discovering, you can say, your higher self. Question from Tony is if reality is based on one's perception of the world, how does one change their perception? Great. And one of the lessons that we're going to cover today is about that. So if you just joined us recently, we're doing in 60 minutes a full entire Kabbalah course. So we're up to lesson 2. I'm actually running a little behind on time, but I think we'll make it. Okay, so we're up to lesson number 2, and we're talking about how it all began and where we're headed. Sandra is asking, do only humans have a point in the heart? How about animals? Good question, Sandra. Animals are actually, all of nature, still vegetative and animate, are all already in a corrected state. They don't need to correct anything. They're part of this, the system of nature itself. The only thing that needs to change its perception are human beings, because the egoistic, the true ego exists only in human beings. Animals follow instincts, and their instincts are natural and they're harmonious with their environment. Human instincts are egoistic, and they are destructive to the human environment. Okay. Let's see. Does the new sense, is it like seeing another world, or is it a feeling of happiness? You'll have to develop it and find out. In Kabbalah, we say, taste and see. You shouldn't believe anything that anyone tells you, besides having trust that you feel that what they're saying is correct, but in fact you should strive to find out, to delve into it, to discover it yourself. And until you don't taste it, then it's all philosophy, right? It's all just imagining what it's like. It's like a bunch of blind people talking about what the color blue is like. We can do that theoretically, but it's all theoretical, it's all philosophical. It's not rooted in reality, and Kabbalah does not like talking about philosophy, only about things that are actually attained within the sense. Okay, moving to lesson number 3. Okay, lesson number 3. All right. So, lesson number 3, the title is... Too many buttons here. Clicking around. Okay, here it is. Lesson number 3. That's the wrong screen. This is the right one. Path of pain versus path of light. So what does it mean, path of pain versus path of light? So, let's quickly recap. Lesson 1, the wisdom of Kabbalah. What is it? It's a method that can help you develop a tool to tap in to a spiritual frequency, a hidden frequency that is the driving force of reality. That's the wisdom of Kabbalah. Lesson number 2, it all started from a thought, from the thought of creation, you can call it that. Don't get confused with anything religious, because these terms sound confusing. We sometimes refer to it as the creator, but in fact it's nothing like the names that you've learnt most likely in your childhood as part of different religions, any religion. It's something else, so think of it more as a force of nature. It's like an upper force that is on a higher level of reality. That everything that we see around us is a result. We're in the world of consequences, and there is a world of causes, like the control room of reality, you can call it that. So all we need to do is we need to climb back up to that state. And now path of pain versus path of light is talking simply about the process through which we climb. So imagine this. Imagine that, let's make this whole thing a little bit smaller, and then, okay, I guess I can't make it smaller. Let's imagine that we can go through this here, through these 125 degrees. We can go through pain, and we can go through light. Now, what does that mean? It means that each and every one of us, and this goes both for the individual and for the collective, we have what's called in Kabbalah a reshimah. Now, I find that the most accurate translation, there really is no translation for this in English, but I think it's most accurately described as if it's like a registry, right? It's like a registry that holds in it information. That's what it is. And it holds information of all the states, past, present, and future. And within this reshimah, within this registry, everything that you've ever experienced, and I'm not talking just about in your current life, because this spark of yours that you have inside of you that's pulling you to discover something higher is in fact eternal. And when I say eternal, I mean that it actually came from here. That's where it came from. It didn't come, a year ago when you started asking these questions, or 10 years ago, or a month ago, or a day ago. No. It awakened maybe then, and it started having, like, as if sparkling, but it's not really sparkling, but as if, because then it starts sparkling and then you start feeling it, right? So just imagine it like that maybe. But actually, it was there the entire time. It just awakened. Now, why did it awaken is a different question, which we're not going to get into right now. But it actually has to do with the reshimah. So every one of these states is, in fact, actually already built. Past, present, and future. How can it be? How can the future states already be in existence? Because spirituality is above time and space. When we're talking about this level over here, we're talking about a process that is above the limitations of this world as we see them. Plus, we already know today from science, the whole theory of relativity, that even time isn't exactly what we think it is. It's actually very different. It's relative. So if you travel really, really fast, getting closer to the speed of light, so you can travel for, a year in space, come back to Earth, and 1,000 years would have passed, right? Interestingly, we said that everything is in consequence of the spiritual worlds, so interestingly that this law of relativity is talking about coming closer and closer to the speed of light. Of course, the spiritual root of that principle is simply coming closer and closer, not to the speed of light, but to the light itself. And as you do, when you become like it, you rise above the reality of this world. You rise to a reality which is above time and above space. It's Pretty cool. So all of these states are already in existence. Now, nature is pushing you to evolve to these states. And whether you like it or not, there isn't much you can do about that. Meaning, a baby, an embryo in the womb, it's developing. You can't stop it unless there's some disaster, but if everything is as planned, it'll happen. It evolves, and it has in it also pleasure and pain, etc. Now, we are developing, and you could even say awakening, because this point in us is awakening to a higher level of reality. And this higher level, we're going towards it no matter what. Now the question is, are we pulling ourselves towards the future states that are already in existence, or are we not? If we are always advancing through attracting this light, through aspiring to develop from one degree to the next, from aspiring to rise from this world to the spiritual world, if we're always aspiring for the light, then we develop in what is called in Kabbalah the path of light. What does it mean? It means that you're always one step ahead. It means that you're consciously bringing yourself into balance. Because all pain is lack of light, in fact. Any sense of pain that you experience on the deepest, most fundamental levels, to the silliest, simplest things, all it is lack of light. And when you consciously evolve through attracting this light, which we'll get to that as well on how to attract this light, when you consciously evolve towards the light, then you advance through the path of light, which is a pleasant, painless path, really. That's the path of light. And the path of pain is like being a stubborn little kid that doesn't want to do their homework, and there's no choice, the homework has to be done. Now, the path of pain is not the state of advancing. You can't advance through the path of pain. It's just like you can't do, if you want to get your kid to do their homework and they're not doing it, and then you want to put in some kind of incentive, so you might create something that seems to them as painful, but the pain that they experience isn't doing their homework. It's just pushing them to do their homework. So the action itself isn't acquired, isn't achieved by the pain. Pain is just pushing us to advance in the path of light. That's basically what pain is. And I'm sure that you've experienced it yourself and you've seen it around you. Pain pushes us to search, and it pushes us to find. And humanity on a whole, and also us on the individual levels, we've all experienced different kind of pain. But if this pain is pushing us to evolve, to birth, then you can think of it like growing pains. There's even like a phrase, growing pains. When you grow, it comes with a certain form of pain. But if you advance through what we call the path of light, then your advancement it's sweet, it's mitigated. It's like making an effort, which is painful, but knowing what the purpose for it is, and then you enjoy it. It becomes sweet, right? Plus, if you advance through this path of light, not through the path of pain, basically you're bringing yourself into balance. You're changing your perception. So some of you might ask, okay, so if I go through the path of light, then will I still experience the same pain, but I'll only see it positively? The answer is no. No, you will not. If you advance through a path of light, then you're advancing through a different level of perception of reality. It's difficult to explain and understand because we're talking about a different layer of perception. But everything that you perceive now is a result of your limited perception of reality. So if you change that perception, your reality changes. So you might say, okay, but what? So we'll see everything differently? Yes, you'll see everything differently. Take on your glasses, and I always use this example, put on a pair of different glasses that have a different lens. So these are darker glasses, and then if I put these on, then I see everything differently. Okay, so if you change your lens, then you'll not experience the same reality and just justify it and say, yeah, okay, this pain is good for me. No, you will experience reality differently. You will experience it from a different perspective. So that was lesson 3, path of pain versus path of light. Now, this is already bringing us into the next lesson, lesson number 4 out of 5, which is, okay, so if everything that we experience as pain is a result of how we perceive reality, and it's lack of light, then what's this perception of reality? How do we perceive reality? Right? So moving on to lesson number 4, which is perception of reality. Well, I didn't really have to show this text, but okay, fine. Just so you have it organized. Lesson 4, perception of reality. Okay, so let's just continue with this drawing because basically we're unfolding everything through this. So we're advancing through this process, and in fact, like I whispered to you before, if you remember, it was a long time ago, it was 3 weeks of lessons ago, I whispered to you that you are already in this state. You're already in state C. So why don't you feel that way? The answer is because of the way you perceive reality. So, in short, you can think of yourself like a black box. Okay. And this box, it has 5 openings. Right? And these openings, well, they're not really openings, in fact. They're actually filters. That's our 5 senses, obviously. Smell, touch, taste, see, and hear. And what we experience, and this is science, by the way, it's not even spirituality. We experience something that's outside of us. So there's something outside, it goes through your eye, and then your mind, your brain interprets it as something, and then it paints a picture of reality. There was a study that found that if you invert the lenses of your glasses, you'll see everything upside down. That's not the research. That's just, optics. The research showed that if you wear these glasses for 3 days, then you start seeing reality straight. And if you take off the glasses, then everything will be upside down. So that's, whoa, okay, so which one of those is really reality? So the answer is none of them. The answer is we don't know what reality is. We only know what we perceive with our senses. And what's outside is a question mark. Right? So it's pretty mind-blowing. I'm just saying it like in a few quick sentences, but if you really delve into this last minute, it's incredible because it actually means that we have no idea what's outside of us. Everything you look, you're in front of a computer or on your phone, and everything around you, and it's just some form of energy. We don't really know what it is, So this whole picture is like an illusion that is just drawn to us by our senses. Ask a fish, how does a fish perceive reality? Does he see the same reality as you? Probably not. So who's to say that the reality that you see is the correct reality? Obviously, it's not too. It's on a spectrum. You can imagine it like this. So, the fish. So we're not up here. No. Up here, I mean. No, we're nowhere there. We're simply here. And there's a whole spectrum of reality that we're just not perceiving. And the reason why we don't perceive the spectrum of reality is very simple. It's because we don't have the right tool, like we said before. Now, what is that right tool? Very simple. It's the intention. What intention? Okay, so it goes like this. The hardware of this mechanism, of this box with 5 senses, the hardware, meaning it's the matter that it's made from, is a will to receive. That's all it is. A will to receive. a desire, you could say. And that's not good, it's not bad, it's all that there was. All that was created, a desire. Now, upon that desire, there is also its software. Now, the software that we're in currently is the intention. So the intention is the software. So the intention that we currently have is in order to receive. That's the intention that we currently have. Everything that we receive, even when we give, it's in order to receive fulfillment. So we do what fulfills us. And that's a fundamental law of our current existence in reality. Now you can question it, you cannot agree, but I guarantee that if you really think about it, you'll find that every action that you do is simply driven by that calculation. How can I receive the most pleasure with a minimum effort? And what we need to change it to is the same desire, which is also to receive, and that cannot change because that's the only thing that was created. So that same desire, in order to receive, it needs to change its intention in order to give. That's it. This switch of the intention is unlocking reality. All right? So that was lesson number 4. This is how we perceive reality. We perceive it through filters, which are our 5 senses, and all that's missing is changing that intention, and the action of changing that intention is in fact developing a sixth sense that can connect you to, it's like a direct link to a different layer of reality. It's not one of these 5 senses, it's in a completely different layer, but it's like a 6th sense. And this 6th sense is the development of a new intention, the intention in order to give. Now, you're probably playing with it now and saying, okay, so if I, let's say, receive something like a gift from someone, and I receive it and I say, okay, I don't even care about the gift, I'll receive it for them, for their sake. So you're getting closer, but you're still calculating maximum pleasure at minimum effort. It's still not exiting that equation. This transition here isn't a psychological switch. It is on a certain level, but it's what's rooted in there is a much higher internal change that doesn't limit or change anything on your corporeal, material level of how you live in this world, but it adds an additional layer to it. That's why when you study Kabbalah, you can remain in your religion. You don't have to change anything externally. You don't have to quit your job, or you don't have to change anything. You only need to add this internal layer that you work on changing that intention. So that is how we perceive reality. Now, how do we change that intention? That's your question. That's lesson number 5. Right? So lesson number 5 is lesson number 5, the light that returns to good. Just think about that name, the light that returns to good. It means that there is light. It means that there is a good state and that we're not in it anymore, but that we were, because returns means that you were there already. So that those few words have a lot in them, the light that returns to good. We were in a good state, like we said, state A, B, and C, and all we need to do is we need to climb back up to that state. How do we do it? How do we change our perception? There is something beautiful in the wisdom of Kabbalah. It's amazing. I love it, and I'm sure you will love it too. It's a concept that is called the light that returns to good, or sometimes it's called the light that reforms. So, you know how all these New Age, a lot of New Age methods, they have like, the law of attraction, think positive, etc. They're actually not new at all. They're rooted in the wisdom of Kabbalah. And they're rooted in this principle that, this is already, Okay, let's keep going here. Okay, so when you're in this state and in state B, actually let's draw a clean one. So you're here, and I know we only have 6 minutes left, but that will be just enough to finish lesson number 5 and the last lesson in our crash course, the light that returns to good. So you're here in this world, and you're not satisfied by it. If you were, you wouldn't be here. You want something more. Now, you want something higher. Let's call it the spiritual world. Okay, so how do you reach the spiritual world? How do you change your intention? How do you change your perception? Or basically, if you go over the lessons that we talked about, you'll see it's all the same thing. It's all different aspects of just changing the way we interact with these forces. That's the wisdom of Kabbalah. Right? So how do we do it? There is something that's called the light that reforms. So the light that reforms it goes like this. You're in this state, in this world, and there is already the perfected state, right? We called it state C. Now, in this perfected state, you're already in existence. You're already in complete perfection and connected to this entire network of everything and everyone in perfect harmony and in a perfect state of fulfillment. Now, if you aspire for this state, if you want to reach it, that's it. Want to reach it. How simple is that? If you want to reach that state, what happens is you're attracting upon yourself light from that state that you want to achieve. Simple. The light that returns to good. This light, it lifts you, it brings you closer to that state, to that final corrected, perfect state, from you wanting to reach it. Now, how do you reach it? How do you want to reach it? What, I just sit there and I want to reach it? Well, luckily, Kabbalists developed and discovered 3 main tools in order to do that. Tool number 1 is a teacher. You have to have a teacher because you need someone to guide you. Without a teacher, it's like getting sick and then studying to become a doctor to treat yourself. You can theoretically do that. It'll just take you a long time and you might die until you become a doctor. So a teacher, it accelerates time, it guides you on how to advance. Number 2, books. And when I say books, I mean only authentic Kabbalistic books. I don't know what books out there are authentic. There are thousands of them. All I know that the books that we have in Kabu, in Bnei Baruch, Kabbalah Info, they are authentic. For them, I can vouch. Anything that's outside of there, I don't know, so don't even ask about it. So that's number 2. Now, why the books? Because when you read an authentic Kabbalistic book, the Kabbalist that wrote that, he didn't write about this world. He wrote the book about the spiritual world. And even though it seems that it's worded about talking about this reality, there isn't a single word in the Kabbalistic text that talks about this reality. Right? So here it is. I'm talking about this book over here. So you're reading a book with authentic Kabbalistic text, and when you read it, you want to connect to the spiritual state the Kabbalist wrote about. You want to be there with him. You want to rise to that level. Result, light that reforms. All right? That's the result. Sorry, over here. Okay? That's number 2. Number 3, you need a community. You need not just for psychological support or for support on on the material level. Actually, not at all for that. It's helpful, but not for that. That's not the reason. The reason is because in this perfect state, it's a state where everything and everyone is already connected. So when you are studying with someone, and even right now in this live broadcast, the fact that you're watching this together, and you're even communicating a little bit in the chats, etc., if you want to build this connection between each other, in order to be similar to this state up here, because in this state you are in fact connected, this is probably the most powerful method of light that reforms. More than anything. This environment, this community. Right? So 3 methods to attract the light that reforms. So I have 1 minute left, and I'm going to recap in that 1 minute the entire course. So lesson number 1, what is the wisdom of Kabbalah? It's a method to discover the hidden forces of reality, the causes that govern our world. Lesson number 2, it all started with the thought of creation. A force that is entirely a force of giving that created the opposite of it in order to be able to give to it. They were already in a state of perfection, but there was one thing missing: independence of the created being. As a result, the light pulled itself away from the created being and left us, quote unquote, in this world. What we need to do is we need to rise back up to that perfected state independently, to actually find that we were there all along, but only our perception did not enable us to see that. There are 2 methods of rising in this path: path of pain and path of light. Path of pain is when you resist these forces. You feel them inside, they're pushing you, they want you to evolve, and you're being stubborn, you don't want to advance. So nature, the forces of nature naturally are just pushing you to evolve. Like the world now in coronavirus, right? Pushing the world to evolve, either through pain or through light. That's entirely up to you. How do we perceive the reality that we're in? How do we apply this method? Well, we're locked in a box of 5 senses that's run on this hardware, which is a will to receive that can't change, it won't change. What can change is the intention that we use. That's the software planted on the hardware. Currently, our intention is in order to receive. We need to change that with the intention in order to give. So the ultimate state is receiving, because that cannot change, with the intention to give. And changing that small little bug unlocks everything. How do we do that? The light that returns to good, the light that reforms. A potential energy that if we want it, if we aspire for it, if we are attracted to it, it pulls us up to that state. How do we interact with this energy? Kabbalists recommend 3 means. 1 is a teacher to guide you. 2 are books, not to guide you, but written by Kabbalists, so when you read them, you can connect to the spiritual level they were written from. And by doing so, you attract yourself, you bring yourself to that level. And number 3 is community, not for material support or psychological support, but again, because when you connect with like-minded people who also want to evolve spiritually, you begin to resemble the system that you are already in and connected. So when you want to connect with someone who also wants to evolve spiritually, and you do that because you want to resemble that system, that's the most powerful means to draw this light that reforms, the light that returns to good. So that's it. That was an entire Kabbalah course in 60 minutes. Hope you enjoyed it. It's not over yet. We are continuing for our first ever KabU exclusive Zoom meeting right now, right after this. So if you're in KabU, I'll see you there. If you're not in KabU, if you want this teacher, the books, the environment, the community, and you want to be part of KabU, then you can join, you can sign up now. If you actually sign up right now, then you'll even be able to join the Zoom session that's happening immediately. So if you sign up, then you'll get contacted with a Zoom link, and you can do that. Now, by the way, if you become a KabU member, you don't only get access to all the courses and live sessions and amazing community, and it is amazing and everything, you're also supporting us in this entire thing. You know, every dollar that comes in from a KabU member, it is reinvested in developing courses, materials, you know, making everything more accessible. It's all invested in spreading light to the world. So if you become a member, then you're doing those 2 things. You're getting access to everything in KabU, and also you're supporting us in this incredible effort in spreading light to the world. So if you enjoyed the session, click the like button, click the share button. This is actually a good video to share with someone you want to introduce to the wisdom of Kabbalah, so do that. And signing off, so don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. And I'm going to sign off now, and we're going to meet in a couple of minutes on Zoom for our Kabbu exclusive Zoom session with Kabbu students, where you can ask me anything live. You can turn on your cameras, we can be in the same room, we can feel a little bit closer. So I'll see you guys there. Thank you very much. I'm Gil Shir. This was Kabbalah Explained Simply. Today we had an entire Kabbalah crash course in 60 minutes. Goodbye.